If I would improve a little bit, I could compete with you. I believe. Now I have to improve some,
All right.
but then I could
We'll
compete
give it a
with you.
shot here.
Are you ready?
I'm ready. Play my usual. I don't know about this system. Hallucinating. Total hallucination. We've done that before. Ah. You don't want to go in for the crazy stuff. Huh?
Mm. Well, it's yours, Dave.
Yeah.
Couldn't get out of that. Well, I played you a pretty competitive game.
You did.
Pretty competitive. I mean, I lost a bunch of pawns.
Hey guys, this is Tom. Nice game between David the Fish and Royce the Rook. David starts out with like this English opening, and then Royce goes into this sort of a hippo setup with the black pieces. So I want to start looking at this game from about move 12. Here, black captures the bishop. We get queen takes, and here is the first mistake of the game when black plays rook c8. Apparently, the best move in this position was to simply castle the king. Let's see what happened, what could have happened. So rook c8 here, the best move is actually knight db5, and this move hits the a pawn and the d pawn, and it's actually very difficult to defend for black. If you push the d pawn forward, then we can just take the a pawn with the knight, and now the rook has to move. Now, if rook takes the pawn on c4, then queen can just take. We exchange everything, and after king takes, we get bishop to b6 check, and here white is doing very well, plus about 3.6. So that's not a something black wants to go. So he'd have to go for this rook a8 move, hitting the knight. Knight would retrieve back, and this position is just much better for white. But let's go back to the game and see what happened. Rook c8, and here David goes for the move b3, just adding an extra protection to the pawn. And black castles, and we get a nice move here of f5. Now, this knight to db5, again, it's still on the table. It's still a good move, but f5 is like the second or third best engine move. So it's also aims at, of course, targeting the king side, but also there is this threat of a fork also. So here, black takes, and after it takes, we get the move knight to c6. And here, again, the engine wants to go for this same idea because the d6 pawn is weak, and you know there's no way that black can protect it, so it's probably just be falling. Here David goes back with the knight, so instead of going forward he goes back, giving up a little bit of the advantage. And now we get the knight e5 hitting the queen. So David takes, and queen takes, rook takes, and here engine says just play rook f to e8, and you're okay. This square here is protected by that knight, so it's not easy for white to penetrate with the rooks. And you just want to make sure this knight is pretty stable, so that would be the idea for rook f to e8. In the game, we get the move knight to g4, hitting the bishop. And then after the bishop moves, we get an exchange of bishops. And now the knight moves to e3. Nice move by black. And rook moves to f2. Then we get knight takes the pawn. And David takes control of the 7th rank here, which is a good idea, of course, putting a lot of pressure on the bishop and on the pawn as well. So rook b8 is the recommendation by the engine here, just to defend the bishop and not allow white to capture this pawn. But in the game, we get bishop a8, and then rook captures, and then rook moves to the e file, e8. And here we get g4, kicking the knight. And this was a blunder because, you know, black needed to play a different move. He needed to play knight h6 to protect this pawn. He cannot allow the rooks to double or to penetrate and both be on the 7th rank, which is going to be really powerful. So knight, you know, knight h6 was the best move, and here it's +1 for white, but black is still fighting. But in the game, we get the move knight e3, and of course David doesn't miss this opportunity. He jumps in, and as they say, pigs on the 7th are hard to stop. There's all kinds of checks now, and it's just going to be very difficult for black to stop these rooks now. So after this, we get knight takes g4. David pushes the knight out again. We get knight to e5 attacking this rook now. So rook take check. So here white plays the move knight d4, which is apparently a mistake. The engine here actually recommends the move rook takes h7 first with a check. The king moves over, and then you jump the knight to knight f4. And the idea here is putting pressure, of course, on the g6 pawn, but also um, jumping with one of the knights to this d5 square, which is a great square. And of course, if the bishop exchanges, then we can put the other knight on there. So let's see how this would have continued. We get let's say, b5, and then knight jumps in already. Bishop takes, knight takes, and now you guys can see that this knight is going to be very powerful here. Want to jump in with a fork, so black would have to stop that. And after rook check, king has to go over. And here, a very nice move, jumping in with the knight and threatening a nasty checkmate. The black rook has to give itself up for the knight. And then after this, yeah, white is much better. Well, let's go back to the game. The move knight d4 happened. And after that, we get knight to d3 by black. And check. King moves over. Another check goes back. Rook on g to e7, attempting to trade the rooks. And this is not a top engine recommendation or anything, but from a Heyman perspective, I think it makes a lot of sense to trade off the rooks because remember, white's up 2 pawns here, and he does not want to give black any kind of initiative. If you look at the black's pieces, you got the bishop that's on this long diagonal, you got the knight pretty close to the king, and if you allow the rook to penetrate, there might be some trouble around the king. And so David, I think correctly so, just tries to trade off pieces at this point. And so we get rook takes, and here the black rook moves and attacks the knight on d4, and David goes back with the knight to e2. Now apparently knight ce2 is kind of an inaccuracy. The best was knight to e6, followed by rook c8, knight d5, bishop takes d5, c takes, knight to b4, d6, knight c6, rook to b8, and here white is just trying to push the pawn through. It's just +6 for white. So this would have been kind of the best way to continue. But knight c2 isn't like a mistake or anything. So knight goes there, and then king goes up. Knight checks. King approaches the knight and goes back. And now we see these knights are quickly coming after the king. Royce grabs the pawn, and here we have check. And now after the king moves, knight e6, and now there's basically an unstoppable checkmate on the g7 square. The rook's going to land there, and yeah, the knights working together just take away all the squares along with the rook. So yes, black can delay the checkmate by sacrificing the rest of its pieces, but can't stop the checkmate. So very nicely done. Royce resigns here, and David takes the win. Let me guys know what you thought about this game in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.